I thought this would be just another show. Crack a few jokes, get some laughs, walk out on top like always. But the moment I opened my mouth, the rules changed. He knew something I didn't, and when he said just one sentence, I realized I wasn't tearing my guest apart. I was the one getting buried alive. But let's start from the beginning. Look, I've made a career out of roasting people alive on national television. It's what I do. Politicians who pretend they're relatable, washed-up actors who still think they're A-listers, social media gurus selling overpriced water bottles like they reinvented hydration. I've torn them all apart. But tonight was supposed to be a masterpiece. My guest? Rick Huntington, 54 years old, the human embodiment of a Facebook comment section. MAGA hat pulled down so tight, it looked like it was holding his brain cells hostage. The guy was a walking throwback, probably still using a landline and forwarding chain emails about secret government conspiracies. The moment he stepped on stage, I knew this was going to be too easy. The audience was already chuckling before I even opened my mouth. The energy, electric. I leaned back in my chair, flashed my signature grin that has sent grown men into therapy and kicked things off. Rick, my guy, bold move wearing that hat in public. What's next? Bringing a VHS tape to a Netflix party? Boom! The crowd erupted. Laughter, cheers, people clapping like I just handed them a free car on a talk show. Rick didn't even blink, just adjusted his hat like a grandpa getting cozy in his favorite recliner. Weird. Usually, when I go after the old-school types, they either get red-faced, furious, or launch into a rant about kids these days and their smartphones. But Rick just smiled. All right, no problem. I doubled down. So, tell me, Rick, how's life in the 1950s? Must be exhausting keeping up with all the new technology like color television and seatbelts. More laughter. I was unstoppable. This was textbook domination. And then, Rick did something that made my stomach drop. He laughed. Not the awkward, pretend I'm not offended laugh. Not the I'll get you later laugh. A real, deep belly laugh. The kind that sent a chill down my spine. Then, with all the time in the world, he leaned forward, rested his elbows on the table, and gave me a smirk that could end careers. You really have no idea who I am, do you? The energy in the room changed. The audience, which had been roaring just seconds ago, was now dead silent. Laughter staggered and died in their throats. Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. I forced a grin. Rick, buddy, I know exactly who you are. You're another guy who thinks a meme is a reliable news source. The audience laughed, but it wasn't the same. Something was off. Rick? Still smiling, and then, very slowly, very deliberately, he adjusted his hat again and said, Well, Jeremy, I own this network. Silence. For a full 5 seconds, I thought my eardrums had stopped working. The audience? Frozen. The producers in my earpiece? Silent. Even my cameraman, who usually struggled to hold the camera steady, was standing completely still. I laughed, because what else was I supposed to do? Rick, my guy, that's cute, but let's be real. If you owned this network, you wouldn't be sitting here, you'd be... And that's when my producer stormed onto the stage, face pale as a ghost. He leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. Jeremy, he's not joking. And that was the moment my entire world collapsed. I wish I could say I handled the situation with class. That I stood up, shook Rick's hand, and played it off like some seasoned professional. But no, I just sat there, staring at my producer like my brain had been unplugged. Total system failure. The audience? Dead silent. That weird, uncomfortable kind of silence where you just know something went terribly wrong. Rick? Relaxed. Too relaxed. leaned back in his chair like a king on his throne, that smug little smirk plastered across his face. The dude was enjoying this. Finally, I managed to get some words out. "You're serious?" Rick nodded. "Dead serious." My producer, who at this point looked like he was one heartbeat away from passing out, rushed onto the stage. He leaned in, voice shaking. "We need to cut to commercial." Rick lifted a hand, casual as ever. "Nah, keep it rolling. I want everyone to see this." The sheer confidence, the audacity, the absolute boomer energy radiating from this man. I swallowed hard. My heart was pounding. My mouth was dry as sandpaper, but I wasn't about to let this guy steamroll me. Time for damage control. I forced a laugh, trying to keep the vibe light. Okay. So what? You own the network. Big deal. That doesn't change the fact that Rick didn't even let me finish. He leaned forward, his eyes locked onto mine like a hunter watching prey. "Oh, it changes everything, Jeremy." Then, with the precision of a man who's been waiting for this moment his entire life, he pulled out a folder. A thick one. Slammed it on the table like a lawyer about to destroy someone's entire existence. The audience gasped. I felt like I just got hit by a bus. Rick tapped the folder. "This is your new contract. Sign it, or start packing." My hands clenched into fists under the table. My mind was spinning. This was supposed to be my show, my platform, my home turf. And now I was one signature away from total submission. I had two choices, fight back or fold, and neither option looked good. I don't even remember leaving the studio. One minute I was sitting under bright lights, cameras rolling, an audience watching me lose control of my own show. The next, I was in my dressing room, door shut, staring at a contract that felt less like a job offer and more like a life sentence. Rick had me completely cornered. The terms? Beyond ridiculous. Every episode must feature conservative guests approved by the network. No more jokes about MAGA, old-school politicians, or anything remotely critical of their crowd. Every episode must start with a patriotic monologue, which, knowing Rick, probably meant standing there for 5 minutes talking about how great everything was in the good old days. A mandatory thank you segment at the end, where I had to personally acknowledge and praise the new owner of the network, Rick Huntington. If this wasn't a hostile takeover, I didn't know what was. I ran a hand through my hair, staring at the contract like it was written in some ancient language I couldn't understand. My heart was pounding. My head was spinning. I wanted to rip it in half, burn it, march back into that studio and tell Rick exactly where he could put this contract. But then my producer walked in, his face pure regret, like he already knew what was coming. "Jeremy," he said, voice low, "if you don't sign, you'll never work in TV again." I froze. My grip on the paper tightened. I looked at the contract, looked at my producer, looked at my own reflection in the mirror. I had spent years building this career, this show, my brand, my identity. And in one night it was all gone, unless I played along. My throat felt dry. My hands felt numb. Then, without another word, I grabbed the pen and signed. Rick won. I was his now. Welcome to my new life. So, what would you do in Jeremy's place? Would you sign the contract and keep your career, or walk away and risk losing everything? Let's be real. Power moves like this happen all the time, and not just on TV. Maybe you've seen it at work, in business, or even in personal relationships. Have you or someone you know ever been backed into a corner like this? How did it turn out? Drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you found this story eye-opening. This story isn't just for entertainment. It's about shedding light on real-world power struggles and manipulation. The goal? To make the world a little better, one conversation at a time. And remember, your opinion matters.